Alright, hey, what's up, AJT Jungle? We are on the fourth part of the power of habits, the mechanics of change. So, just to review what we talked about last week, is that we talked about keystone habits and how some habits have the power to actually start a chain reaction. Okay, they have the power to start a chain reaction and actually changing other habits as they move through us. Kind of eliminating some of the bad habits as it progresses.
UV GameStop shares.
Oh, hold on.
Now 2630 ahead of their.
Gotta mute my boy while I'm talking. So, in other words, some habits matter more than others in remaking our mindset. And these are called keystone habits. They can influence how people work, eat, play, live, spend, and communicate. So, keystone habits start a process that over time transforms everything. Now, we did talk a little bit about this last week. And see, some keystone habits can be bad. Like if we're relating to trading, responding to, you may have a keystone habit that comes into play when you take a loss in trading, and it engages this keystone habit that kind of takes over, and it can like destroy or just kill some of the good habits that you have. It just overrides it. And that's why when you sit here and you're thinking, man, I know what to do, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I can't do it. Like, for instance, you're sitting there and you know that if you lose on the first trade, you have a process that you go through that puts you in the right frame of mind for the next trade. But let's say that bad habit comes back. You've got a bad habit of wanting to seek revenge after a losing trade, especially after a trade that you've done everything that you're supposed to do and it looks really, really good and it doesn't work. Or let's say you make a mistake, you don't do something right, and that triggers a negative response, which happens to be one of your keystone habits. And from that, the negative responses just kind of overtake the process that you had in place. And then, you're kind of stuck in that loop, going over and over and around and around and around. So, you got to understand that you can have bad keystone habits that trigger from something negative happening to you that will overtake and supplant the good habits that you have. So we've got to be aware of that and have a process in place to deal with that. So we talked about willpower being one of the most important keystone habits. And willpower is a key in life. Anytime you want to make a lifestyle change, willpower is what you need to have that resilience, to be able to stick it out. And if you don't have that willpower, or some days that willpower is weakened, it's going to make that task impossible. Like going to the gym every day. You could have your willpower could be weakened from things that happen in your day. Let's say we have a bad trading day. And there were times, and still today, if I have a really bad day, and especially if I made a mistake, I'm going to be really beat up about it. I'm not going to want to do a damn thing. I'm not going to want to talk to anybody. I'm not going to want to do anything. And I'll just sit around on the couch and just get sick and be sick because I don't want to do anything. And all of that is because, willpower is like a muscle. It can wear out. It can get tired. And you have to exercise it to keep building it up. So if you exhaust it by concentrating, say, on a bad trade you took, and you're upset with what you've done, you probably won't have any willpower left to stick out the process on the next trade. And then you make mistakes and you let things that you thought you had overcome come back in and mess you up. And so we talked about a good keystone habit to have in trading is reflection and journaling. That can actually strengthen your willpower. Okay, call it a willpower workout. But we talked about that and how it can help you. And we did talk about the stress from adverse situations. We gave you the Starbucks example where they have their employees prepared to deal with stressful situations that come up. They have a process in place. And companies that don't, it tends to break you down. It breaks those employees down and they don't do very well. They don't function at a high level, especially after somebody, comes in and breaks them down. And then if you don't have the ability to make your own decisions or, have any type of agency, Starbucks gives their employees the ability to make decisions. Now, just imagine somebody barking orders at you all the time, telling you to do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. You have no agency. It breaks your willpower down. And it tends to make things a little bit difficult to go forward. So last week was a very important lesson on Keystone Habits. And we're going to revisit this, I think starting next week, when we're trying to build the right habits. All right, so we bear the responsibility for changing our habits. Okay, because we want the autonomy and the ability to make the decisions for ourselves, then we have the ability to we bear the responsibility. It's our responsibility to make sure that we're doing the right things, that we're doing what we're supposed to do. Okay, and quite simply, once we become aware of a bad habit, or a habit that creates a whole lot of turmoil it's our responsibility to address it and change it. Okay, so let's look at gambling, because gambling is close to trading in the sense that a lot of traders gamble. They come in and gamble. And then when things don't work out, they wonder what happened. Why didn't this keep happening? It's because you were gambling on it. You weren't responsible. You weren't following your process. You weren't practicing good habits. Okay, so if you think about it, let's say, okay, there was this lady who had a gambling problem. And she knew it. She knew it was fun. She knew when she got into it, she couldn't stop. How many of you have that problem when you get into your trading day? You're trading and you can't stop. You just get in and you start trading and it's addictive and you just can't stop trading. This is the same issue. Well, this lady ran up like $500,000 in gambling debts or something like that. The casinos sued her. But she was saying that she had no control over it and that they were enticing her. They would send these coupons in the mail, giving her discounts and all of that stuff just to come and gamble. And her argument was they were enabling her. But everybody has an opportunity to unsubscribe from those things and not get them. And the judge found that it was her responsibility to enact that. So she was on the hook for all of that money. And it's kind of the same way, in our trading. We have to take responsibility for it. If we have an issue of over trading, it's our responsibility to address it. It's not the responsibility of your mentor to do it for you. It's impossible. What he's going to do or she's going to do, or what I do, is I'm going to give you a process. I'm going to help you develop a process in order to deal with it. And you have to stick to that process. And trading for us, I'm telling you, it's the same way. It's like the same way we deal with these same issues. Okay, these same issues to where we just have to keep doing it. Even we may lose 20 times in a row, but that one win will keep us hooked for another 50 trades. And that is not feasible. Alright, so our routines. They call them organizational habits. But our routines can be dangerous. But a crisis can change it. Okay, let's say we're trading and we have a profit target that's at a daily level. There's nothing in between it. There's no reason why it can't get there. And we're taking a trade. We're up 2 or 3 points on it, but there's nothing in between, and we should be able to get 2 more points. Right? So our process, our organizational habits is, as long as our trade doesn't technically tell us that it's over, we're going to leave it alone and let it work. It's worth the risk. So what if it stalls out like 50 cents before it gets there, and we're watching it? It stalls out there, pulls back a little bit, it bounces back into that area, kind of stalls out. It's just going back and forth. What do? Common sense tells us, based on the price action, we need to take profit there or either get the hell out altogether. Okay, but at a minimum, we need to take profit there. But our process, our trade plan, doesn't have the override button for price action. Okay, because you haven't learned how price action yet. It's something that you haven't learned, and you need to learn how to do it. This scenario could cause a crisis. It could be dangerous to your account. You could be in crisis mode because of what's happening. But what it does, after you're in crisis mode a couple of times, what happens is you realize you've got to change something. You realize your organizational habits or your routines need to be changed or updated so that it goes along with what's going on now. So too often, our routines, it puts us in a very bad situation. It puts us in a dangerous situation, and we don't want that. Okay, so this is when we have to change our process. When this happens, this is when we're changing our process. We have to, and it's a constant thing. Okay, everything is changing. The world is changing. Technology is changing. So what works for us now may not work for us in 6 months. So we have to, be ready to change our routines, because sometimes they'll get to the point where they will cost us money. And they need to be changed. So what I want you to do this week, and next week, when we get together next week, we want to start fixing, or if you have some, or if you don't have any routines, help you build routines. I mean, a lot of that was done in mentor sessions, because get off in mentor sessions, because it's a intimate thing to the individual. They're individualized. But that's what you want to do. You want to have a routine that stop it. You want to have a routine where, okay, look, if you made a mistake, if you completely botched it, let's say I was in a trade, I saw it stall out, I should have taken profit because I saw it, but I was trying to wait for $50 more, which is stupid as hell. But I did that, and then the trade bounced and I ended up taking a loss. I'm going to be pissed off at myself. I'm going to want to slap myself. I'm going to want to get on my ass kicking machine and just let it keep kicking me in the ass because I made a mistake. And if I don't have a routine to deal with that, then when I get back into trading, I'm going to be all over the place. Mentally, I'm not going to be there. So having organizational habits or routines is going to protect you from yourself. And most of the time, that's what we have to protect ourselves from ourselves, because nobody else is going to do it, and we have to do it. All right, so any questions? And what you may want to do is just kind of write out the steps that you go through. What's the routine? How do you handle yourself when you have to close a losing trade and you made mistakes? How do you handle that? And if you don't have a process for that, then you probably want to put one in place. I mean, if that's your process, yeah. For me, I'll take a break. When I feel like I'm mad at myself, then I'll take a break, because what happens if you're mad at something or you're mad at somebody? What do you want to do to them? You want to punish them, right? So when you get mad at yourself, subconsciously, the first thing you think of is you need to punish yourself. And what's the easiest way to punish yourself? Screw up your trades. Lose money. Say, look at what you deserve this, because you're crap. You're a sorry trader. You deserve to lose this money. And you actually self-destruct. I mean, it happens. All right, so that's your homework. That's what you want to make sure that you have a routine. If you don't, you need to put one together. We're going to talk about some things that you want to have in it next week. So from this point on, we're going to talk about building good habits and replacing the bad habits. And maybe talk about another keystone habit or two that we can implement. All right, any questions? I know I was short and sweet. I'm trying to make these shorter. I'm trying to keep these in the 30-minute range. I think there's something about those extra 15 minutes if you do 45 minutes. So I want to keep these in the 30-minute range. So it makes it easier for everybody. All right, so I'm going to stop this recording. I'm going to